Hey there, college sports fans. Well, it is year two of Tom Allen at the helm of the Clemson defense. We're going to find out how much better it could be this year. We're going to talk position by position about what Allen can bring to the table and what he might be able to do with those guys. Uh, by the way, get our free Substack for bonus content. Check that out. QR code there on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. I'm Bill Zimmerman. This is the Reign Supreme Walleye Podcast, Season 5.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Bill, you said how much can it be better? I hope it can't be worse. I don't know that the defense can be worse than it was last year. Let's just hope not, right? I mean, especially the secondary. I think you need to see more out of the defensive front as well. And I know they lost some big names last year, but I also don't know that Peter Woods and TJ Parker ever kind of lived up to the big names. I mean, they were good, they were solid, but I don't know that they ever dominated or were great. And they had spells where they were really, really good. But so I think this is a complete reboot of this defense. I love the additions through the portal. The one injury early in camp, Polo Anderson is. I think it hurts because I think he was going to play a lot from what I've heard and what I've been told. But I think the defense has to be better, and I don't know that it can be worse, but we'll see. But I like what I'm hearing about the defense early in camp.
Don't say that so quickly because we've seen worse defenses in our lifetimes anyway. I don't know about
Yes, we
people half our
have.
age, but we sure have. My goodness.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing you didn't touch on there, and let's just jump right into it. We're going to go through position by position, and right in the middle of the list, also right in the middle of the defense, is linebacker. And it isn't just injuries and NFL draft departures that hurt this defense. It was a portal take that was lost. We don't have to mention his name, but
Yes.
that would have helped to have that supporting standout guy alongside Sammy Brown. And also, it would have been someone who could have defended the pass and covered a receiver, covered a tight end, covered a running back out of the backfield better than the guys that I think are on this list. That's not to say if the linebacker room is a total shambles and it's only 50% of a room. Sammy Brown should end up with capable play either from Kobe McLeod or Jeremiah Alexander beside him, just not on the level that it would have been, right? And then you're looking at quite the battle beyond that. Not a lot of room to list everybody on the screen here if you're watching YouTube or video on Spotify or one of the other podcast services that picks up our video feed. But you got Fletcher Cothran out of your hometown, Anderson, not from your high school. We don't have to mention the other high school if you don't want to. But then you've also got some guys like CJ Kuba Taylor, Drew Woodaz might emerge. You never know, especially with him. He was kind of a safety option when he was recruited. They weren't sure if he'd be a safety or a linebacker, so maybe that's an opportunity to have some pass coverage from the linebacker room. A lot of options there, and none really stands out as someone who you say, hey, there's your definite starter alongside Sammy Brown, the way you had Kendall Joseph alongside Ben Boulware, the way you had just signed with
Right.
Jacksonville, just signed with the Jaguars, Bale Inspector alongside Jamie Skalski. There's not that one true standout sidekick who you like, wow, we're set in the middle.
It feels like the linebacker group is thin, and I think there's talent there. I still am waiting for Jeremiah Alexander to become that second guy. And I know he's been with the program now a little bit, but I feel like he's the best fit to be the second guy. Kobe McLeod, what is he? Maybe he overachieves. I know he wasn't a big time recruit, and that's not what this is all about. Once you get on campus, you're on campus. The recruiting rankings do not matter once the games start.
Yep.
But if he's solid, he got hurt, and we know that he's been dealing with injuries in his career. So if you've got those three guys, maybe they can rotate. You just hope. I mean, like, cross those fingers that there's no
Don't
injuries.
don't finish that. Oh.
So I
Yeah.
mean, that's the big key because there's no depth.
For free bonus content, get our email newsletter at clemsonkickoff.substack.com with info beyond the podcast plus an alert before each new episode. Yeah.
I mean that I don't think you go into this season counting on Drew Woodaz, right? I don't think you go into this season counting on Kuba Taylor to be a key or Cothran. you know, his alma mater, high school alma mater notwithstanding, I don't think you want to go into a season counting on them to be huge parts of the defense. If they're depth plays, okay, that's fine. But I don't think you go into a season go, boy, I can't wait to see those guys and what they're going to be in this defense. Now, if they are that, then maybe you have something. But it just feels like this group is a little thin.
Right. And the same might be said about defensive end. We'll go ahead and move to the front
Yes.
line there. I think Jaheim Lawson really solidified himself as a starter, and you're hoping
Yep.
he takes a step forward this year from even what he achieved last year. That hasn't been a given, right? That someone who's stepping into from sophomore to junior or junior to senior, two guys you mentioned already, Peter Woods and TJ Parker, they did not elevate their games. Miles Murphy did not really elevate his game, so on and
Right.
so forth. So you're hoping that Lawson can do that a little more. You're hoping Will Heldt can do it just a little bit. I mean, Heldt, I think, was probably the best defensive lineman all last season out of anybody in the room at both end and tackle. Then you get behind them and it's a little thinner, and you don't have complete players behind them, but you certainly have guys who are good at particular things. You've got London Merritt, who is kind of reportedly sort of getting acclimated to what this system expects of its defensive ends under Tom Allen. You've got Darian Mayo, who's been in-house for a while now. He's got a chance to emerge and turn a corner, as Dabo Swinney likes to say, flip a switch and become a big contributor. I think that's the four that's going to be the most of it. Maybe you get something out of CJ Wesley, a transfer from Howard, who seems to be not really a thick, muscular dude, but he's a speed guy. So you might have some situational pass rushing downs that you get him on the field for. You've got Ari Watford, who's still coming along, not really polished yet, but in his second year with the program. You've got Armin Mason, who's been hanging around forever and earning compliments from Dabo Swinney forever. Is he going to have a chance to emerge? I mean, much like that linebacker room, and also like we talked about with the running backs after you get past the top two, right? Like there's that chance for
Yep.
someone to step up and take some spots in the rotation, maybe not become a starter, but become a key player.
Yeah, it feels like Bill, there's pieces
Mm,
of players, right? Like they're not, as you said, they're not complete players, but they're situational players. And that's okay. I mean, you need pass rushers, on third down. You need those kind of you need a run stopper on fourth and short. You need those kinds of pieces where it's not Christian Wilkins and those guys that could play every down. But at least you can come in and play, 2-3 plays here and 2-3 plays there. That's okay. But you're right. Thin is probably the theme of this defense, at least up front. The secondary last year was the problem, at least the back end of the secondary. And now it feels like that group is deeper than the rest of the defense. So we'll see how that plays out. But look, it feels like defensive end, linebacker, they're a little thin. And now maybe defensive tackle,
yeah.
they have a little more depth. That's what we've got to find out as they get going with this season, because there's some transfers in there who I really, really like at defensive tackle.
Well, let's jump over to that now too, because two of those guys that you mentioned, those transfers, be Marcus Strong, who comes from Oklahoma. Uh, Good recommendation, I would imagine, from Brent Venables, and they just had such a deep defensive tackles room under Bates, who another familiar name, Todd Bates, when he was at
Yep.
Clemson. So you'd think the ingredients are there with Marcus Strong, right? Andy Berberia is a JUCO transfer who just I keep seeing across multiple sites, across multiple reports. Hey, this guy, he's got something, right? And he's got that ability to really impact the middle of the line and sort of hold things down and move the line into the offensive backfield. Then there's Amari Adams, again, the very high pedigree out of the recruiting class of 2 years ago. This is his second year with the team. He flashed, he showed some ability just as he maybe was starting to earn some more snaps. He had the injury. So he's going to have to sort of get his own legs under him, literally, and also reclaim that sort of status that he had. I think between those three guys, you've got two starters. And I think, Nick Eason and Tom Allen are going to be able to kind of pick and say, hey, what's the best tandem up there? And then who's the third guy that's going to rotate, maybe relieve both of them. But beyond that, you know, Vic Burley, I think, is the best player, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Already been in a yellow practice jersey, so he's already a little bit limited by injury. All right. Well, good a time as any to go ahead and drop in this breaking news as I'm adding this in on Saturday, August 22nd. Vic Burley has been indefinitely suspended by the Clemson Tigers, and head coach Dabo Swinney won't be available. So there's a high level talent that could have entered that mix of sort of starter level uh, talent and maybe getting those rotation snaps in. He might not be available for some of the season, might not be available for all the season. We'll just have to see how that unfolds, but it certainly changes the picture. It takes away a guy who might have been able to be a high impact player had he been able to take another step forward this year. It also pushes more of that responsibility onto guys like Champ Thompson, a junior who's coming back, and we saw him contribute some. We'll talk about him in a little bit. It also pushes some responsibility perhaps to Devarick Woods, the transfer out of Texas State, fifth-year graduate coming into the program, one of the guys in that portal hall that we've been talking about. Or maybe freshman Cam Cody, a guy with a lot of promise out of Savannah. Maybe he can step up and take advantage of this opportunity now. There's one less guy in the way of getting snaps. Um, you hate to see it. It's not the kind of thing you want for a guy who's got so much talent, so much ability, a chance to really make an impact in the game and turn this into a real positive. But not the first and won't be the last, right? Unfortunately, and you don't like to see it. And this program has had a good track record of keeping guys on track. It has not been perfect. Today, once again, shows a rare imperfection in the mix there. So you may hear us talk a little more about Burley here and there. Of course, we now have to take that with a grain of salt, not knowing the details of what his availability, easy for me to say, what his availability will be moving forward. He already was, as we mentioned, dealing with some injury troubles, and now this on top of that. So the defensive tackle picture changes once again a little bit, and some new names to think about. You get into Devarick Woods, another transfer, guy who can really jump in and make a difference. Louisiana High School, came from Texas State through the portal. But then you've also got Champ Thompson, who was around and had some nice snaps last year. And again, that's that year of progression, that year of moving up. Another chance for someone to say, "Hey, I'm going to be your solid fourth guy." So a bunch of names there, a bunch of talent there. The question is, what are they going to like?
Right. And look, I think there's a couple of names here, Bill, that really stand out. I think Amari Adams really needs to take the next step for this defense to become something. I just he is the talent wise, I think he's the answer. But can he take that next step and be more consistent and flash and more often again come back from the injury? All that's true. He has the biggest upside, I think, of that group. And then look, I'm really interested to see what Strong can be, Barbaria too. But I mean, Bill Vic Burley. I mean, he's been there several years now, and they've never really gotten a whole lot out of him. And look, he's a guy I watched in high school and here in Middle Georgia, and thought he was going to be a really good addition for this program. And some of it's injury, some of it's whatever, but they've never really gotten a whole lot out of him. So, look, if Amari Adams can take the next step and become kind of the guy at defensive tackle, and then Vic Burley can stay healthy, and maybe he's more of the fourth guy behind Strong, behind Barbaria. Okay, and then Chance Thompson, like you said, I think Chance Thompson played okay last year. So if you've got those five kind of rotating and keeping them fresh, I think that's a good thing. But Adams has got to take the next step to be great, and then they've got to get something out of Vic Burley if this team. I really believe that those two are really key to the entire defense this season.
Yeah, Burbaria, kind of that fire plug who you want in the middle, but I think that if you're going to get that interior pass rush to complement the rush of the defensive ends,
Right.
complement the blitzes from the linebackers, it's probably going to have to be Adams, Strong, and then probably Burley would be the next one out of all those names that we're talking about that would really have to be the ones to create that pressure up the middle, getting into the backfield, whether you're disrupting a handoff or rattling a quarterback. And, that's been such a key, especially in the Brent Venables era, rattling opposing quarterbacks, taking them out of their decision making, taking them out of their
Yep.
progressions, getting them out of their comfort zone overall, and making them feel like the game is too fast, turning them into, well, no, I'm not going to name that name that we talked about who's in Jets camp. I'm just not going to go there again. However, you want to force those bad decisions or those poorly thought out decisions that will keep an offense from moving the chains and get the ball back in your hands. And I think those guys are, like I said, Adams, Strong, Burley. You look outside, it's Heldt. Really anybody out of that bunch. Heldt probably more so Merritt if he can get on the field consistently than Lawson as far as generating pressure. But Lawson has started to do a nice job of setting the edge, and I think he's focused a lot on that. So a really good front four, and then you've got Sammy Brown when they're able to turn him loose. Boy, does he have that quickness and that sense of how to get in there and disrupt and see ball, hit ball kind of guy to borrow a phrase from father of an incoming recruit for Clemson, David Pollock. That all makes things easier on the secondary if they can get in there and shorten that clock that each quarterback has time to work with. And so let's get into that deep secondary and how much help is it going to need from up front? Hopefully not as much like you're talking about.
Well, look, they've got one guy in the secondary who is you hear people say all the time, he's a dog. I mean, Ashton Hampton is an absolute stud. We know that. We've seen that. Dabo said he liked this preseason. He talks a lot, but he walks it too. So look, that guy will be playing, I would imagine, in the NFL this time next year. So there's one spot that you can nail down. Cornerback, the other cornerback, it feels like Elliott Washington was a really good addition uh, from Penn State transferring in. And then you've got the two transfers in Carter and Myrick that I really like a lot. They seem like they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. And Bill, this defense needed that last year. This defense was on its heels a lot last year. And I get why it was on its heels. It didn't seem to know, these players didn't seem to know where they wanted to be or were supposed to be. And I will never forget, I believe it was the Duke game. Was it the Duke game where this one is, I think it was Hannafin and one of the cornerbacks both jumped a short route and gave up
Yeah,
the touchdown over the top.
I
And then
think
it
you're
was
right.
also that game when Hannafin and one of the cornerbacks both blitzed and they weren't supposed to both blitz and gave up a shot over the top. So that stuff's got to stop. The only way that stuff stops is if you are really in tune with what you're supposed to be doing. We saw the defense get better in the second half of the season last year. I dismissed the bowl game. We don't who played, who didn't play, whatever, who was on their way out, whatever. Those bowl games don't matter anymore the way they used to. But the defense played better in the second half of the season when we saw Tom Allen's son get involved in the communication in the secondary. We've seen some additions to the secondary coaching staff. So and the transfer. So I think all of that will make that unit be better going into this season.
Yep, and sticking with the safeties, you've got Nolan Turner now as the
Right.
dedicated safeties coach. Again, working under that guidance of Thomas Allen Jr. as the overall DBs coach under Tom Allen, who's the defensive coordinator. But bringing in two guys to play in front in Myrick and Carter kind of gives Turner a fresh start. Like he doesn't have to jump in and necessarily solve what ailed this defense last year. Of course, Khalil Barnes is gone. He's gone down the road to a nearby school that I guess does okay for itself pretty every now and then. You've got Ronan Hannafin, who is still back. You've got some guys like Jakarian Keenan. You could have had Polo Anderson, as you mentioned. I think he would have been a key contributor. He's going to miss
I
the
do too.
season with the torn ACL. Maybe Kylan Webb, maybe Kylan Griffin figures things out again somehow, some way. We've seen him flash early in his career and then sort of regress a little bit. Noah Dixon is in there. So you've got some guys. Again, none of them have really jumped out and seized playing time, But with this new combination and with the chance for Myrick and Carter to assume those starting roles, you wonder who's going to evolve and who's going to develop. And could it be Hannafin? I mean, it's hard to say who it's going to be behind them, but we'll find out as time goes on. I bet in that opener against LSU, we're going to see a steady diet of Myrick and Carter, and not a lot of the other guys out there, unless somebody's chin strap pops off their helmet or something like that. You go over to the nickel, by the way, which kind of like to discuss in the same vein as the safeties, even though it's becoming more of a third corner lately. Looks like that's going to be Corian Gibson, which I think we all saw his evolution and his contributions during the season last year and how he kind of stabilized that corner position by the end of the year and helped out a lot with that. You've also got transfer Donovan Starr out of Auburn, who might be able to contribute there. You've still got Tink Kelly, who might be able to contribute there. Another year of progression, another year of improvement. And then you've got the coach coming in, Karika Wright, as we all know, former Clemson player, coming in and trying again to lock down that nickel spot. I wonder in some run heavy situations, would we see Hannafin there? It's an interesting option to think about, but I think Hannafin didn't display the knowledge of where to be and when to be there last
Right.
year. So asking him to adopt another position and try to, work in multiple places might not be the best of ideas there.
No, I think Hannafin's head was spinning last year. I know he changed positions and all that stuff. He
Yep.
moved from offense to defense. Bill, I remember vividly sitting here last year. We were doing an episode like this. I think it was just about the secondary. And I thought he was going to be the star of the defense
All
last
right.
year. And I said that, and I was 100% wrong. He really struggled. Maybe he settles in more now in his second year playing defense as opposed to playing offense. I still worry about Kelly being so small.
Yeah.
I mean, getting kind of boxed out per se by receivers on the little in routes if he's playing that nickel spot. But Gibson, I thought played well last year. I thought
Sure.
he really progressed. And again, can he take the next step? That's what this is. I think for a lot of these guys is there the next step, or is that just who you are? If there's the next step for a lot of these guys, I think the defense can really improve. Again, can it be better than last year? I don't think that's that hard because it was really putrid last year. They had two really bad problems last year on this team. Well, two main bad problems. There were several problems. They couldn't run the ball offensively. And on defense, as Dabo has said, they had the worst pass defense they've had since he's been the head coach. They couldn't cover anybody.
Yeah.
And when they would play the zone, they're covering grass. When they played man, they couldn't cover man. They didn't have an answer in the secondary. Hopefully, they have the answers in the secondary this year. And we'll see if Tom Allen Jr. can help. Carico, as you said, is back. Nolan is now the now the safeties coach. So there is a new look to the secondary, and I think it had to happen.
I do love the corner play here. I think Mike Reed just continues to earn his paycheck and then
Yep.
some year after year after year at the corner position. That there's always that progression of, the alpha dog lead corner and then that up and coming second guy, right? And I think last year, maybe because of that safety play, we saw Terrell and Hampton having to give cushion a lot of the time. And I did read, I think it was Pro Football Focus maybe again talking about Hampton and saying, yeah, they had to put him in position where he's playing further back. He wasn't suited to that. Terrell loved to just lock in and stay step for step with the guy, Avion Terrell, who went early in the draft to the Falcons, playing alongside his brother there now. But with Hampton, it was more about the physicality. It was more about disturbing routes. It was more about not only did he have that speed, but he had that ability to really be disruptive without drawing a flag. As well, he's drawn a few, but anybody's going to in this version of the game. Like I'm not asking a cornerback to go out there and have zero pass interference penalties. That's just unrealistic. I really like if these safeties come in and can do what they need to do, if the nickel position appears to be resolved and these corners can play tight and lock guys down, that is another way that you can take a quarterback out of his thought process, take him out of his progressions, feeling like nobody's open, feeling like he doesn't know what to do with the ball, and then suddenly bang, you've got the pass rush staring at you and either putting you on the ground or making you throw it away, or hopefully you might even decide, well, as I'm falling down sideways, maybe I should throw it to the other team or drop the ball before my knee hits the ground or whatever. I think it'd be nice if other teams were doing that instead of Clemson this year. But anyway, I digress. I think these corners are terrific up front. And then I mentioned Starr. If you don't need him at the nickel spot, he's got the ability to do fairly well, I think, outside. Brandon Strozier, I didn't have room to put on this list, but he's another one that I would list there. You and I have been high on him, just waiting for that switch to flip, right? Is it going to be sort of
Yep.
a Mark Fields situation where Fields' final year, he really started contributing, looking really good when he had to go out and spell a guy for a few plays. And other teams would be like, "Hey, starters off the field, let's go with that guy." And Mark Fields was able to step up and answer the call. I think Donovan Starr could do that. I think Strozier could do that. And you've got some other guys, Marcel Gibson and some other younger guys coming along through the system. So it'll be interesting to see what shakes out because I don't think at this rate Hampton or Washington will be back next year. But right now, we're talking about this year.
Well, and I'm glad they're there this year. I
Yeah.
really am. I think Hampton, he's not perfect. No cornerback is going to be perfect. AV Terrell wasn't perfect last year, right? But I think Hampton is he's one of my favorite players they've had the last few years because he seems like it matters to him.
Yeah.
He seems like he really cares. And a lot of guys care. They want to win. But do you not want to lose? And I don't mean the game. I mean this snap, this rep. You saw him in the preseason running the hills where he was the first guy at the top of the hill every time.
Yeah.
That matters. That matters. That competitive spirit is important. And he seems like he has it. They need more guys like him who, yeah, I want to win. Okay, that's fine. Again, everybody wants to win, but do you want to do the work that it takes to not lose? That's two different things.
Yeah.
And he's got that. They need more guys like on this team like that.
Be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. It's free. It's the best place to catch all our episodes, and it's the best place for you to comment with your reactions. I see a lot of upside in this defense overall. Just
I
kind
do
of
too.
to recap it all and put it together. I know one thing you and I haven't talked about yet in this episode is eliminating those run gap misfits and not being where they should be. And I think I'm not going to say it's all one guy's fault, right? There were times where a defensive end didn't set the edge adequately. There were times when a defensive tackle tried to make a play and that left a hole. But I think a lot of that really, honestly, a lot of times when I looked up, and I'm no expert, film analyst type of guy, but you had Wade Wood as way out of position, like
Right.
way out of position a lot of times, trying to make a play. The effort was there. It wasn't out of being lazy, it wasn't out of not trying. It was like, I'm going to go force an issue here. And kind of like a Tanner Muse kind of situation a little bit where against LSU in that national championship game, Muse was trying to go for the knockout highlight reel hit when he should have wrapped a guy up and gotten him down. So I feel like whether we've got McLeod in there or whether we've got Alexander in there, I feel like they're going to be more predisposed to be in the right place and try to make a play in the right part of the field where they're supposed to be. I feel like the floor is higher with McLeod. I feel like the ceiling is a little higher with Alexander and his athletic ability compared to McLeod. I mean, we're talking razor's edge differences, but razor's edge differences make
They
a
matter.
lot of impact in games as the season goes on. Um, I kind of trust that Allen in his second year is going to be able to iron that out. And the people that he needs to iron that out are mostly returning guys. So knock on wood. And then, Myrick and Carter, the times that they need to come up and play against the run, hopefully they're going to be more capable doing that than Barnes was, than Hannafin was, and the other guys who were rotating through. I just think hope I'm right. I really do think like this defense is, I'm not going to say it's going to be a lockdown. I'm not going to say that it's going to be one of Clemson's best ever, but I feel like the glaring mistakes will be a lot less frequent. and that's going to enable them to rattle offenses enough to maybe make some more big plays as well, and then capitalize on that Tom Allen theory of get the ball, take the ball away, be
Yep.
aggressive. When the ball carrier comes toward you, make a play and make a hard play. And we did see the Clemson defense benefit from that last year, and I'd love to see that continue this year.
Well, remember 2 years ago, Bill, his first year, and they didn't, before he got here, I'm sorry, they didn't tackle well.
Right.
Last year they tackled much better.
They did.
They fixed that.
Yep.
And then there's these huge holes in the secondary last year where you're going, oh my God, what are you doing? How does that even happen?
Yeah.
So I think, look, he fixed the tackling issue that was there before he got there. I don't think you could have ever foreseen this secondary being as bad as it was.
Right.
I just, look, and I'm not going to put it on Barnes. It's not on him, but he had a part in it.
Yeah.
Hannafin had a part in it. And you can't just run it back with those guys. And Barnes left. That's his right. And we'll see what he can be with his new team. But Hannafin's got to step up. These other guys have now moved in front of him, and I'm excited about seeing that. But Tom Allen fixed the tackling. Now, if he can fix that stuff, they're going to be much better. And if and buts, I get that. But if they just stop the huge busts on the back end, Bill, they were pretty solid on defense last year.
Yeah.
It was just the 3 or 4 plays where it looked like 8 guys didn't know where they were supposed to be. And it happened every game. And if you eliminate those handful of plays, this is a much better defense than it looks on paper. And I don't feel like those things are sustainable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think those are things that, it's like a defense that lives off of forcing a bunch of turnovers, and that's how
Right.
they get stops. That's not going to happen year over year.
Right.
There's going to be a return to the mean a little bit. And I think on the good side, there's going to be a return, a return to the mean a little bit where you're not giving up all those big plays. That's not going to happen 2 straight years, I don't believe. I mean, we got to find out. I get it. They're going to give up big plays at some point, but not the just onslaught of big plays where, look, if you give up a big play because the other team makes a play, look, hat tip, they made a play. But Clemson gave up big plays last year because guys were running 20 yards behind the secondary with nobody near them.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen again.
Agreed.
We'll see.
I don't want to jinx it, but agreed. And I think here's the other thing. Right out of the gate, you've got LSU. You've got a talented quarterback in Sam Levitt who has
Right.
not really played as much in this offseason and gotten as acclimated as he could have because of some injury. Now, supposedly he's healthy. We're going to try to get an inside line on that in an upcoming episode. Knock on wood. Hopefully that'll be able to pull together timing wise. New receivers there as well, new offensive coordinator there as well. So there are a lot of pieces that have to fit right out of the gate if they're going to punish the secondary and make it look bad. Let's see if that can really happen, but it might very well. That's college football these days. Sometimes you just piece it together and it happens. But if they can get through that game with a pretty good secondary performance, then you get Georgia Southern. You got Clay Helton, who's not exactly an air raid kind of guy. Week 3, you get North Carolina. They've named Billy Edwards a starter, guy from Wisconsin. Wisconsin was not all that great last year. You wouldn't think that Edwards is going to come in and be lighting the house on fire by week 3. That's 3 weeks where this secondary really has a chance to work together. The new coaches have a chance to work together in all these new roles, 2 new faces, but several new roles as well. Then you've got that trip to Cal, Jaron Koa Sagapolatele. I always try to say it fast in case I'm not saying it quite right. And I do think I butchered it the last episode where we mentioned it. So hopefully I got closer to the mark there. Then you've got Miami with Darian Mensah, Cooper Barkate, Malachi Tony, like high octane. And then they like to split their tight end wide a lot, like Jordan Leggett did in 2015, 2016. So that will be high pressure. You really do need these first 3 weeks to go well to be set up for success in week 4 and week 5.
You do. And you look, a lot of that is, as you said, new pieces, new coaches, new players, but people with something to prove.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Think about the transfers. They've got something to prove. These guys that can they take the next step? They've got something to prove. I think Nolan Turner's got something to prove. Maybe Carrico has something to prove coming from a smaller program, those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think there are guys and coaches and players that have something to prove. And I will take those kinds of players more times than not. I think there was some guys last year who were a little satisfied with their lot in life. And I'm not criticizing people. There were 9 draft picks on that team last year. How did that how did that team win 7 games with 9 players drafted?
Well,
So I mean, it was not good last year.
right.
And I'm not blaming them. It's not all on them. There were other problems as well. But I do think there were some guys the last couple of years, maybe, who thought, hey, I'm going to the NFL. I'm not going to not do my job. As I said earlier, Bill, is it about winning or is it about not losing?
Yeah.
There's 2 levels of effort and work ethic and all those things that fit into those things. And, and you said it during the offensive show of something I say, do your job on defense.
Yeah.
Don't do, if you're the safety, don't do the cornerback's job. If you're the one linebacker, don't do the other linebacker's job.
Right.
Don't jump the wrong hole. Right? So do your job. If 11 guys do their job as opposed to somebody else's job, then you're at least solid on defense. And they weren't even solid on defense last year. They were atrocious.
Yeah. Beat your man, win your assignment, at least
Right.
first. Like that's priority one out of the gate. As you see the play develop, don't jump too soon, but also don't just say, "Well, that's not my play. That's that
Right.
guy over there." Like there's a
Absolutely.
needle you have to thread, and it's tricky, and that's why that's why very few teams can win 2 national championships 3 years apart. We've seen the difference as followers of Clemson football. I think one of the things, honestly, is a little bit chasing that PFF grade, chasing that draft position. Having gotten some money under your belt already, where I think last year was probably the first time that Clemson spent as much money as it did on roster retention. I think guys, you know, look at baseball players through the years. Guy gets a huge contract, goes somewhere. I'll look at Kyle Tucker in LA right now, 60 million a year, kind of unheard of money unless your name is Otani and you both pitch and hit really well.
Right.
Doing terrible, playing horribly at home in Dodger Stadium, holding up
Getting
his career
booed.
numbers on the road, getting booed
Getting
now,
booed out of the
probably a little
stadium.
bit
Yeah.
overdue, Dodgers fan says. You know, I think there's something to that some players just say, "Hey, good, I got my money, but I'm still going to handle practice and game prep and playbook knowledge and coachability all the same way." And some guys just don't. And so hopefully it's a lesson learned from them and they all learn how to go onto the NFL and do really well. But the NFL still looks for those grades, and that's how those guys still got drafted high, even though the team record was 7-6, right? They saw the physical tools. They even if it still looks raw, even if it still looks like they haven't mastered how to play their position, well, we've got the coaches that'll teach them that.
Right.
And prime example, Cade Klubnik looked pretty good in his first start with the Jets in the preseason. Maybe something is clicking there with him and Frank Reich. So maybe Peter Woods will have that guy as a defensive tackle coach. Maybe TJ Parker will have that guy as a defensive end coach, that version of Frank Reich at their position that can really bring out the most in them and give them the ability to make that happen. So what needs to happen in Clemson is the coaches there bring the most out of the guys that we've just been discussing. And anything can happen week one in LSU. Like for Clemson fans, and I think for LSU fans as well, that's going to be appointment viewing. You just can't miss it. And we are going to have some more content leading up to that major week one showdown in Baton Rouge. We've also got, again, hopefully a guest lined up that's really going to bring us some tremendous insights. Knock on wood. We'll see if that can pull together. And then we'll see. We're going to try to go back to doing 2 a week during the regular season. I think this is going to be kind of a pivotal year for Clemson football. So jump on
I
our
do too.
Substack as well. You're going to get bonus content that even if we do 2 episodes a week, we're still going to bring you something in that free email newsletter that you won't be able to get in the podcast episodes. There's always something we don't get around to saying because we chew up our time. Find us on social media. You know that everybody knows the drill by now. So until our next episode, whether it's guests or whether it's just Daniel and I again, I'm Bill Zimmerman for the Reign Supreme Always podcast, season 5.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.
Connect with us on social media. That's at Clemson Kickoff. Whether you're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Facebook, you'll find us there.